can you hear us okay?
Yes.
There we go. Okay. Go ahead and raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide is true and accurate?
I do.
Thank you. Mr. Jorde?
Yes, thank you. Please state your name.
Meghan Kennedy.
And Ms. Kennedy, do you own or are you associated with land in Iowa that is targeted by Summit for its proposed hazardous pipeline?
Yes.
And in what county is that ground located?
Saragordo County.
And are there 3 or 4 separate parcels that are being targeted?
I own 4. Summit is attempting to trample across and ruin 4 of them. I own 6, excuse me. They're attempting to ruin 4 of them.
Understood. And throughout this process, did you cause to be filed what's known as pre-filed written testimony as well as some exhibits and attachments?
Yes.
And if we were to walk through those same questions in your written testimony, would the answers you give today be substantially similar to those?
Yes.
Do you have any material updates or corrections that are necessary to be made?
I do. I've had, since submitting my pre-filed testimony, I've had more conversations with the insurance company who has said that there's nothing they can give me to limit my personal liability for this hazardous pipeline that I don't want. So that's something that I want to add, that I've had ongoing conversations, and that's something that has not moved forward, that there is no insurance to cover me. And then additionally, when this began, my grandmother, Betty Nolan, was the owner, and her and I were both trustees. She sent me to the meeting back in September to learn about this after she received the letter, that September 2 years ago, after she received a letter as to what she perceived to be threatening her. And she asked me to go get more information. And then at that point, I did get more information. She felt very threatened, bullied, and her words were, tell them where to go and how to get there. Since that time, my grandmother has passed away in May. So when I filed this testimony, the paperwork was not completed as far as the farm still being in the trust. And now the update is that I am the owner.
Okay, thank you for that update, clarification. With that, I move the admission of Exhibit 36 and 37, which are the pre-filed testimony of Ms. Kennedy and the attachments.
No objections? None. No objections, the board will admit.
Okay, ma'am. At this point, I'm going to turn you over to other counsel for and persons for cross-examination, okay?
Mr. Taylor?
Thank you. Ma'am, I'm Wally Taylor. I represent the Sierra Club. And first of all, I want to make sure we have clear what the ownership of these parcels are. You say it's in a trust?
No longer in a trust. I am the owner.
You personally?
Yes. So when I filed the pre-filed testimony, it was still in trust. She had passed away in May, and the paperwork was not finalized. But I am the owner now.
Okay. Thank you. Do you see the map up on the screen there?
I do.
Okay. Does the red portion accurately show your property?
It does.
Okay. And it shows the pipeline route going across the northern part of your property, and then it jogs up. I'm going from west to east, although I guess the pipeline actually goes from east to west, but then it jogs up into an area north of your property and then goes on to the east. Do you know why that jog is there?
I don't, and I'm worried about the pipeline, period, and the hazard and dangers to my life, my financial livelihood. But I'm additionally worried about that jog and that elbow, that, we've learned that this is more likely to cause a problem or a rupture where there's not a straight line of a pipe, of any pipe. So if you look close, my home is right there, and along with my neighbors and our barn. So if I believe that our barn is certainly about 350 feet from the pipeline, as well as our neighbor's barn. And so I'm very concerned about how close this is. Earlier, someone mentioned something about an ambush by trial here. I think the ambush is that no plume modeling has been released. And if I'm out there, I won't know what's happened to me. That is a true ambush.
Okay. Now, as we look at the map here, it looks like there are some structures just south of the pipeline on the western edge of your property, and then some other buildings just north of that, north of the pipeline. Can you explain what those are?
Yes, those are the neighbors' properties, the neighbors' barn and home.
North of the pipeline.
Correct.
Okay, and your structures are south of the pipeline.
Correct. That white building there is our barn, and just beyond that is our home. Additionally, my plans are to build, if you zoom in close, you can see a second driveway where there used to be a home. And my plan is to build my retirement home there, so even closer to the pipeline than my current bedroom window is.
Okay, so does anybody live there on your property now?
Currently not living there regularly. My great-grandma originally was the original owner, my great-grandma and great-grandfather. They built the second home, the one that's still existing there, in the 40s. My great-grandmother lived there. I grew up there, spending summers there, vacations, long weekends there. And then my grandmother, when she inherited it, she would spend about 2 weeks every month there. And that's my intention. Right now, I travel there every weekend. I'm a teacher. I'm off in the summer. So I spend long periods of time there, like months at a time over the summer. During the pandemic, we were on remote. I was teaching from there. So I do spend a great deal of time there. My sights are set on retiring there. That is what I consider to be my little piece of heaven that Summit is telling me that they're going to take away from me.
So how firm are your plans to build a home there?
It's something I do have a bank account. I have money saved for. I have recently just taken over ownership. This was something that was always part of the plan that my grandmother was very supportive and excited about that I would be doing, and continuing on our family legacy there. We're looking forward to being there for 100 years in 44. So that's something that we have really set our sights on.
Okay. Can we zoom back out a little bit again? Thank you. That's good enough. So I was asking you about why that jog in the pipeline, but I suppose, well, could they go straight across just north of your property?
I would think so. The landowner that is north of me with the white barn that you can very clearly see, he has signed an easement. He is medically and financially weak. He's elderly, and my grandmother and I firmly believe that they preyed on the weak and took advantage of him to sign that easement. His name is Larry Schaefer. He goes and puts the signs back up that say no carbon pipeline, no eminent domain in my yard. So he takes his time and goes and fixes those signs because he doesn't want the pipeline. And he told me, you keep fighting it. I needed this money. I'm so sorry. So I believe that he was weak and he was a target. And so now they do have an easement there. So my question would be and I'm sorry that my neighbor was taken advantage of, they do have access to that land. They've signed an easement with them. So why wouldn't Summit continue on that parcel that they already have access to? Why would they come and try and push over me when I don't want this? That's something that we are very serious about our privacy. We don't want people just trouncing around and not knowing who's on the property when, which is what we've already experienced with Summit. That we asked for full information of when they would be on the property. We said they needed an injunction. They did neither of those, and we found footsteps that says that they were there.
Okay, let me ask you a question. Did you ever talk with anybody from Summit about changing the route?
No, I didn't talk with them about changing the route. I attended the initial meeting at NIAC back in September, and at that meeting, I asked Jimmy Powell to clarify that this was a one-time payment and that I would have the burden for my lifetime, and that he would go ahead and earn an ongoing flow of money, that they were forcing me to sign this easement with the threat of eminent domain. And his response in that meeting was a simple yes.
So,
So then I talked to that day, I believe his name was John Hollingsworth. He showed me the land agent that was there at NIAC. He showed me a map, and when I attempted to take a picture of the map with my phone, he immediately closed the book and said, "You can't do that. You can't take a picture of all of this." And to me, right there, that said that this is not a transparent company. They are a shady business if they're not willing to tell us what is going on and be clear about it. The fact that he was hiding something at the first informational meeting. This was a meeting that was supposed to be giving information. And when I was trying to get that information to take back to my then 96-year-old grandmother, he closed the book and said, "You can't have it." He asked me for my phone number. I did give him my personal cell phone number. And he called me a couple times. We talked a little bit, not specifically about the route, but more so about our concerns of this being a lifetime easement. We had previously declined 99-year easements with the wind turbines. And that's not a comment on the wind turbines. That's a comment on our property and not wanting to disrupt our soil. And that we don't want someone unknowingly coming on our property or having the right to access that. My great-grandmother was legally blind, and she lived in that home on her own. And I foresee that that could be my future. I have the macular degeneration on both sides of my family. I anticipate that I will lose my vision at some point. I don't want to be a sitting duck out there and not know who's coming, when, or why.
okay, so Summit never tried to talk with you about changing the route.
So then, after John Hollingsworth, Josh Fambro contacted me, and he said that John was no longer with the business, and he was only with them for a couple of months, and it was because he wasn't getting things done. So now Josh Fambro was here to get things done. He was from Texas. He was pretty aggressive in his statements of how eminent domain would be the outcome and that I should sign now. I told him that I thought he was a snake oil salesman. To be clear, a snake oil salesman is someone who's marketing healthcare fraud, a scam, who sells, promotes, or a valueless or fraudulent cure.
This narrative is non-responsive to the question, which was related to whether or not the witness ever talked to Summit about a route change.
Okay.
So after I told Josh,
Ms. Kennedy, I'm sorry. We don't want to cut you off. There was an objection, and so we're going to have to let the two attorneys weigh in on the objection, and then we'll rule on the objection, and we'll see where we go from there. So, Mr. Taylor, go ahead.
Let me ask another question.
Thank you, sir. Go ahead.
I'm not trying to ask other questions. After your first visit with a Summit agent, then this Josh talked to you?
correct.
Okay.
Yes. And after I told, go ahead.
And that didn't go well, I take it?
No, well, I told him that after he was pushing, threatening, and telling me that we would be victim to eminent domain, and I said that he was snake oil salesman. That was the end of the phone calls, at which time I received 2 emails, and that was then saying that Grant Terry wanted to talk to me, and an email from Sean Blevins.
Okay, what do those emails say?
I am reaching out to you as Grant Terry, who directly works for Summit, would like to have a conversation with you regarding the proposed pipeline on your grandmother's property in Sarasota County. Please let me know if the conversation might be a good time to have a call. And I do want to note that when they were calling me, I was at work. So that was another factor, that they were interrupting my work day. Much as I took time off to attend the meeting in September 2 years ago, I was away from work just as I was away from work today. So in those emails, the last communication was in July of 2022. And I did not respond because I don't respond to threats.
Okay. So was that an email in July of 2022?
Correct.
Okay. And is that the last contact you've had with anybody from Summit?
Correct.
Okay. Did you ever talk with anybody from Summit about the easement terms?
The timeline, I just right off the bat, when we were trying to figure out what this was all about and going to that informational meeting, just the fact hazardous pipeline, followed by threats, followed by a book closing saying that you can't take this information, was very clear to me that this was not a business that we wanted to work with. And we don't know who they're doing business with. We don't know who's part of this company. So again, when I talk about my privacy, that for a lifetime and for future generations, we don't know who would be coming on our property and who would be invading our space, our privacy, and have access to our personal information.
Okay. So I take it also you never talked to anybody from Summit about the safety issues with this pipeline?
I talked about the fact that it was a hazard and that we did not want any sort of a hazard on our property. I mean, we've got enough worries. My grandmother at the time was 96. She had all her wits about her, but she was physically not able. We weren't looking for any additional hazards.
Okay. If there were a rupture in that pipeline and if it were built, where would the nearest emergency response team be?
Mason City, about 20 miles away. It's a half-hour ride one way. Unfortunately, I know that from having to call 911. And when we called 911, it was our neighbors, volunteers who came to us. If there was a rupture, that plume would not allow those neighbors to come to us because they would be victims just as we would. Never mind that they wouldn't have the gear, they wouldn't have a vehicle, they wouldn't know where we were, etc. So now that leaves us to Mason City coming and responding, and depending on that plume and how many people they have to respond to, that's a half hour under good conditions, under knowledgeable circumstances, where somebody's calling and saying, this is where I'm at, as it did on the day that I called 911. If I am on that property and that plume happens, I'm not calling anyone. I'm going to be unconscious. So a half hour is a joke. And that's to get to me, and then to find me, I would think it would be an excessive amount of time, never mind the travel time back to the hospital.
Have you undertaken efforts to determine the safety risk of a pipeline rupture?
No. I have informed myself. I have educated myself as best possible. But I feel like I could be more informed, and that information hasn't been disclosed, particularly the plume modeling. That's why I initially said no, because I feel uninformed because this company is not being transparent about what they're doing, the dangers they're doing. And to me, that says if you're not willing to share it, there's got to be something wrong with it.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. That's all the questions I have.
Okay. With no, Ms. Colas?
Hi, I'm Jean Colas. I just have one question. Are you concerned that Summit has no experience with CO2 pipelines?
I am very experienced, and I would think that such a being so new to building pipelines and doing something that's never been done in this way before, that you wouldn't take it on in such a big capacity. Look at all the land and tiles that they're ruining for something that they don't know that's going to work. They don't know if it's really, prove it to us that there's going to be a financial benefit. There's no proof or evidence of the financial benefit. They say that, but where is that shown? And then additionally, I I'm concerned that if I'm out there and I'm unconscious, I'm a special education teacher, I'm worried that I'm going to be on the other side of the table. I'm worried that I have attended webinars with the Sartation victims, and I'm afraid that that could be me someday, who now is living with a disability. And as a special education teacher, I'm well informed and very worried about that. And that's if I live.
Are you concerned about their ability to maintain it safely too?
Absolutely. Sorry, let me slow down here. I am very worried about their ability to maintain it safely. And I feel that if they had the ability to maintain it safely, they wouldn't be threatening us. They wouldn't be asking the Iowa Utilities Board to do to basically change the Constitution for something that they're doing for their private good. Their sense of urgency is money. My sense of urgency is my safety, my community safety. And that those are two very different intentions, and they're not seeming to align here. That they're going to get their money and run, and then we're going to be left holding the bag is how I feel. And holding the bag means a tremendous threat to my health and a tremendous threat to my financial income with the land and how it's going to be impacted as far as loss of crop production, the soil damage, and then if I were to want to ever consider selling it, which is not part of my plans, but there will be that the value will be at a loss of the land.
Well said. Thank you very much. No further questions.
Thank you.
Ms. Gernhagen.
Hi, I just have a real quick question for you. Did you receive copies of the Exhibit H's eminent domain requests?
Copies of the Exhibit H eminent domain requests.
Yes.
But did I receive the easements? What do you mean?
I guess the proposed easements and drawings of what's been submitted to the Utilities Board for consideration?
Yeah, that came from Frederickson. Is that the...
Yes.
Would that be the mailing you're referring to? Yes.
Yes.
I have a whole stack of them that I received in my name and my grandmother's name.
Okay. On there, I believe it does not list a farm tenant. Do you have a farm tenant on these properties?
We work with a farmer. He is not a tenant. We provide the land. He provides the labor. We split everything else.
So do you have a crop share lease, or do you just contract farm?
We have a handshake. We are families. I should expand on that. My great-grandmother and great-grandfather farmed initially. Then, when my great-grandfather could no longer farm, a local farmer that was a friend of his began farming with him. And then when my great-grandfather passed away, that same person continued to farm with my great-grandmother. Now his son farmed with my grandmother, and now I farm with that son. The farmer's children, one has stayed in my home while she's doing an internship, so that our families are very deep together. The other son mows the lawn when he's home from college on the weekends. So we are a total of 6 generations all together between the two families that have worked very closely across many years.
So I'm not sure whether to call him a farm tenant or he's just someone you're contract farming with. How would you categorize it?
I would say he's our farmer.
Okay. Thank you. No further questions.
Mr. Jablinski.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Kennedy, just a quick follow-up. When Mr. Jorde asked you about updates, one of them involved insurance and liability issues, and I just wanted to follow up on that. Are you aware that Summit is offering language to indemnify landowners from any claim or liability for personal injury or property damage resulting from the operation of the pipeline?
I'm aware of what my insurance company has told me. That's who I'm currently doing business with.
And I guess what I'm asking is, are you aware that Summit is offering landowners that indemnification?
I'm I'm aware of what's happening with the people that I'm currently doing business with.
That's not the question. The question is, are you aware that Summit is offering this indemnification for landowners?
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. Are you aware?
Can you repeat it in a different way?
Are you aware that Summit is offering to hold landowners harmless from claims or liabilities for personal injury or property damage resulting from the operation of the pipeline?
I am aware that I cannot trust Summit, and I don't trust anything that is said. That currently they have not followed through on the things that they have. Well, they don't even say that they're going to do. But like the surveys coming onto our land without permission.
And that was
so
not the question, Ms. Kennedy. The question is very simple. Are you aware that Summit is offering this indemnification for landowners? It's just a yes or no question. You're either aware or you're not.
Well, I'm going to object to the form of the question. It's certainly not blanket indemnification.
Mr. Dubinsky.
I read the language that's being offered several times. I mean, she's either aware that that's on offer or she's not.
Okay. The objection's overruled. Go ahead, Mr. Dubinsky. You can ask your question. She can answer. The witness may answer if she knows.
Then my answer is I don't understand the question.
That's fine, Your Honor. No further questions.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Jorde for redirect.
Yep. So whatever Mr. Dubinsky is talking about with indemnification, has Summit provided you any alleged language and asked you what you think about that type of language?
Absolutely not.
And can we look at the KMZ, please? And while we're pulling that up, ma'am, I believe you, in one of your attachments, attachment 22 to pre-filed testimony, suggested a potential alternative route. And again, to be clear, that would be moving the portion of the line that cuts down into the northern portion of your 4 parcels and simply moving that north of the roadway there.
Yeah, it would give me a little bit more space between my bedroom window and the pipeline.
And then can we look at, please, page 248 of her pre-filed testimony? All right, you see that this is a Summit official map that they sent to you, and then it has your handwriting and then a black dashed line on it. Is that correct?
Correct.
Now you notice the red line that depicts Summit's proposed route on this map extended quite a bit further to the west before jutting down into your property. So the question is, has Summit ever expressed in writing or verbally to you why the new KMZ, despite having an easement on your neighbor to the north, is closer to your home and affects more of your property?
No, and they stopped contacting me. So I honestly thought at one point that maybe I was no longer, that it had been rerouted and I wasn't even on the pipeline anymore because there was no communication after that July email.
Now, you had said that Summit hasn't proven there's a financial benefit, but don't you think it's a benefit for Summit to make $15 billion in tax credits over 12 years?
I think that's a huge benefit to them.
Okay, so when you're saying weighing the benefits, no benefit for landowners.
Zero benefit for landowners. We are taking all of the burden here, all of the risk. And we're not unreasonable people. We have other easements on our property. They wanted an easement to widen the road. We said, sure, that's for the public good. That's what eminent domain, we didn't even have to use eminent domain because we agree if something is for the public good, we're on board, and we have a history on this land that shows that with the prior easements. I'm worried that someday you're going to be watching this video on the news that's going to be me saying, please don't pass this. 2 out of 3 of the board members who are appointed, please don't do this, because when I am unconscious or disabled, and now they have this videotape of me asking you, please don't do this, and saying all the burden and risk that we're taking, that's going to be an ugly moment for the people who took that, who voted yes, if that's you. So please don't put me in that position. Please don't put yourself in that position.
Thank you. I don't have any more further questions, ma'am.
Thank you, Ms. Kennedy. Mr. Jorde, your next witness.
Yep. Miss Beverly Chow, who should also be virtual.